Then, as we were unloading it, Ace pulled out his penis totally out of the blue and said, "This is my dick without a hard on." It was insane. Ace kept grumbling that if he had retained the name Kiss, the band would have been successful without me and Gene. He had another brilliant argument, too. "I'm actually responsible for the whole reunion," Ace said. Okay. If I had never quit, there wouldn't be a reunion. Wow. "Everybody should be thanking me," Ace continued. "This tour only happened because I quit." I didn't know how to respond to that kind of logic. Doc suggested we just get rid of Peter and Ace. He always believed we could do it without them. He saw no upside to continuing with them. "If you're a good person, there's very little I can do to make you a bad person," Doc said. "But if you're an asshole, there's very little I can do to make you a good person." That was his way of saying there was no way around the dysfunctionality if we continued to work with Ace and Peter. We had another idea. We would make a reunion record. I didn't want to be plagued by thoughts of things I could have done. I didn't want to have regrets about not giving this a real try. When we had put the band together in its original form, I for one had hoped that could lead us to some spectacular places. I hoped seeing what we had all learned and bringing all of our experiences to the table would be a winning formula. If nothing else, working together again would alleviate any lingering questions of culpability and show whether there were any mistakes that could be rectified. I was pretty sure I had the answers to those questions after the reunion tour. People don't change, and we separate from them for a core reason. But I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to miss out on the chance to take it all the way. To produce Psycho Circus, we brought in Bruce Fairburn, who had been involved with some very big records from Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, and Loverboy, among others. "This is my dick without a hard on." He turned out to be ill-suited for the job. On his big records of the 1980s, he had worked with a team that included Bob Rock and Mike Fraser, both of whom went on to do tremendous things. Sometimes when a team splits and various members try things on their own, you get a better sense of who did what by who succeeds and who doesn't. Bruce chose awful songs from the demos to record for the album. The song that eventually made the most noise turned out to be the title track, Psycho Circus. Bruce wanted to leave it off the album. He was so far up Gene's ass he not only couldn't see, he couldn't hear. One day I finally had to say to Bruce, "This is your first Kiss album. This is my 18th. This is my dick without a hard on. You will leave here and go on to something else. I won't. I have to stand by this record, so I'm going to do what I want." I went into the studio that weekend and recorded Psycho Circus. Making the album was a disaster all around. Peter and Ace didn't show up. I don't think Bruce would have used Peter anyway, since he couldn't play much beyond the dog tricks Tommy had taught him to get through the reunion set list. Instead of working with Ace and Peter, we spent all our time talking to their attorneys. I wish their attorneys could have played on the album. It would have been cheaper. Chapter 54. I realized one day near the end of the tour that I had to use one hand to support the other arm when I reached up to grab something from a shelf. By the end of the tour, I couldn't raise my arm. When I got home, I went to see a doctor who said I needed an operation to repair a badly torn rotator cuff. I told Pam I had to have surgery. When the day of the surgery arrived, she told me she had an audition the next day. She had already shipped Evan off to her parents' place in Texas for a few weeks. "I don't want to compromise the audition," she said, "so I'm going to stay in a hotel tonight and work on my scene." Pam drove me home from the hospital and then left. The doctor who performed the surgery sent me home with a prescription for Vicodin and a cooling system that pumped ice water over my shoulder from a bucket. I took my painkillers and refilled my bucket of ice water by myself throughout the night in a dark and empty house. I can't believe I'm alone. I can't believe she did this. Pam wanted to believe she had given up her career for me or for Evan, when the truth was that her career had given her up. She just wasn't getting work. I guess it was easier to blame me. Of course I was to blame, but for different reasons. I had been intent on settling down, and even though Pam was a good person, she wasn't the right person for me to do that with. I was bullheaded about making it happen and making it work in spite of things I saw from the very beginning that were contrary to what I wanted. Before I was married, I could go to Europe whenever I wanted, she said one day. Yeah, I said. 10 years ago I was banging women whose names I didn't know. Great, but that's not now. Clearly, neither of us was happy. Pam had become friends with an actress whose career suddenly surged when she was in her 40s. She came to be seen as a symbol. Her success represented a victory for middle-aged women against the stereotyping that many of them faced. I didn't think she was particularly warm or particularly bright. Her husband, who struck me as a spoiled rich kid, didn't make me feel any warmer about the couple. The actress had been invited onto Oprah Winfrey's TV show as part of an ongoing segment on how various women manage to balance their independence with success in home life. This is my dick without a hard on. In the run-up to her appearance, she said to me, I don't know what to say, and asked me to help. So I wrote some pap for her that read like a bad episode of Kung Fu. If you think of yourself as a tree, your family are your roots, and the deeper your roots go, the more fruit the branches can bear. She actually used what I had written on TV. Oprah and the audience lapped it up. Wouldn't it be hysterical if all the people watching realized that this liberated, intellectual woman had been spoon-fed her lines by that male chauvinist bozo from Kiss? At one point, Vanna White, another friend of Pam's, recommended that we go see the marriage counselor she and her husband were seeing. He looked like Curly from the Three Stooges and wore Star Wars ties and had Star Trek memorabilia around his office. Here we were sitting with Captain Curly on the Starship Enterprise, and I was thinking it was all nuts. Vanna and her husband, incidentally, split up. Then as we were unloading it, Ace pulled out his penis totally out of the blue and said, This is my dick without a hard on.